Hello there. Right. So I don't really like ORMs. Um, I'm not saying they're bad. A lot of people like them, and I can see there are situations where they might be useful. And if your application is primarily just getting data in and out of a database, then simplifying that makes a lot of sense. But in general, it's not really something I like. I find that what do I find? I find that I like to think about the way I structure data in the application is quite often different from the concern of how I store the data, how I store efficiently perhaps, but also just the way that you model things isn't necessarily the same. It doesn't necessarily fit both ways. So when I was writing Rails for a living, it like you use active record and it is kind of the extreme of just create a class and it populates itself from the structure of your database. But more recently, certainly where I work at the minute, the way that we represent the data in memory, the way we manipulate data is nothing like the way we store data. And in fact, we store very little data. It's more about transforming and validating and mapping data than it is about storing it and retrieving it. So recently, I haven't touched ORMs for a very long time. The reason I mention this is because in the last episode, I started to introduce persistent and Esqueleto, and I got very ORM-y feelings from it. It was very much, it's not the same as active record. It's not deriving the internal representation from the database, but it's really trying to take a single representation and use it for both your application, the way you model data in there, and the way that you push stuff to the database. I didn't really get a good vibe from it. So my plan for today is to rip it out, basically undo everything I did last week, and go back to postgresql-simple for now. I might look at another library, Haskell, I think it is, which is maybe somewhere in between. So that's probably more along the lines of a query builder than it is along the lines of a full sort of mapping of your data to the database. But today I'm just going to rip it all out and go back to standard. If I want to put it in the database, I'll write a SQL query, in this case because it's Postgres, rather than try and do something fancy and have it do all that work for me. And to be honest, writing SQL isn't that hard. And it maybe you're going to write a little bit more code, but not a huge amount more, unless your application is just storing data. And you get full control of the database as well, and you can do some stuff that might not fit the way you model stuff in memory, but it does fit quite well the way databases work. Now, the other thing is, I don't know why, but when I'm doing these videos, I'm really bad at using Git, like remembering to commit stuff. So I don't have a commit from before I did the work last week, which is a little bit annoying. But there we go. That's what it is anyway. So I'm just going to have to manually undo everything I did. I'm trying to remember what it looked like before. Right, I'm going to start by getting rid of that and that. So we'll get rid of all the DB stuff. I'm going to keep this much for a second because I need to copy some stuff out of it. In main, we'll get rid of all of this stuff. We won't run migrations. I will get the current time. I think I had something. Yeah, there is the account ID. I used that as well. I'm missing a do, which is why it's complaining. But all of this insert stuff is going to go, and I'm going to try and put this. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it yet. This select will go. This kind of fancy mapping the table is going to go. What I really want to do is, this entity val is going to go. What I really want to end up with some ledger entries, and then I'll sum them up and print them out. That's what I want to get back to, and then or maybe as part of that, I'll introduce postgresql-simple as well. In the cabal file, what happened there? In the cabal file, focus. I'm going to get rid of these. Who needs them anymore? I'll get rid of this and this. Okay, so a lot smaller and simpler. The DB module, I don't really want this, but I do want these, I guess. And then back in the ledger, something's happening where it's not focusing on that pop-up. Back in the ledger, I'll keep my sum ledger, but I'm going to create these data types again. So it was data ledger entry equals ledger entry, and then this just becomes a record, I think. I think that's what I had before. The deriving's in a strange place. So I think I just need to turn these back into types. Oh, and put some commas in place as well, which I forgot. And this doesn't work either. It was close, but not quite. And then data account. Again, is this going to be a record? I can't remember what I had for this before. Actually, forget that. Who needs accounts? Okay. I will export this as well. Ledger entry, and then I had some help for creating ledger entries, didn't I? So it would make credit, make debit. I think that's what I had before. Because I'm going to export the type, but not the constructor for it. So we can say make credit, and that's going to take an amount, which was in money, but I've deleted money now, haven't I? I'll take an int64 for now. There's another thing, right, with the object relational mapping approach or the persistent approach. The types I was using were database types. They weren't necessarily types that I want to use in my application. And I presume I can write stuff that converts between them. But it just seems like another barrier to actually modeling the data well in the application. I don't really care that Postgres is going to store as an int64. I really want a money type. And I will put it back in at some point. This is going to be an hour of me complaining about ORMs, I think, which is like what all the kids are into. Right, make credit. I'm going to say either, I didn't do this last time, but I'm going to say it's either going to be some error. What's the error going to be? Is it going to be text? Let's make it text for a second. It's either going to be text or a ledger entry, and then we can say make credit is given some amount where the amount is let's say greater than 0. Do you have a credit for 0? Doesn't make sense. So I think it's going to be more than 0. If that's the case, then we will just return a ledger entry. But we need the rest of it, don't we? We need the amount, we need the time, and we need the account ID. So it's going to be amount, time, and account ID. Although luckily, no, I shouldn't. I was thinking I could just reduce it, right? So I could say ledger entry amount, and the other values would be added on the end and in the right order here. But that's a little bit dodgy. So let's say date time and account ID, and here we'll have date time. Not quite sure why I call it date time, but there we go. Okay, that should be enough. I'm not going to go and kill this thing. I just want to get the LSP back, so I'm going to fix some of the errors. And the quickest way to fix it is to delete the file. Can I delete the file? I don't know what's going on here. This might be a bug in the latest version of VS Code, but it's I'm getting this pop-up. The arrow keys are not working, which is a little bit, it's going to be painful. Okay, UTC time comes from here. Account ID comes from ODB. Okay, so account ID, I will say, what I'm going to say for this, let's say new type. Do you know what? Let's do this bit by bit. So I'm going to get rid of account ID for a second. I'm going to get rid of from here as well. And text. I haven't added text yet. So I'm going to say I'm going to use text everywhere. And I need to go and find the version of text. That one. So package, search, text, and it's 211. Okay, even more errors. Let me get rid of some of these so I can get rid of that one. Why have I got lift.io everywhere? Oh, because previously I was running under the database connection thingy. That's its official name. But all this is already under IO. Actually, we'll get rid of that as well. And then what other errors do we have? Just filter on Cabal. Yeah. Let's try just restarting the LSP, see if that fixes it. Nope, it did not. Okay, so Cabal build, that should be good enough. Oh, I left in Cabal file. So that can go. Now does it restart? Let's have a look and see. Oh, it's looking better? No, it's not better. Okay, back to command line. Not that. Oh. Well built. Okay, so Ledger still imports it. But it doesn't, I just hadn't saved it. Okay. But now I can import text. And I typoed ledger entry in the constructor. That's good. And here, it's going to be right of that. I might say pure. I think that reads better. Otherwise, so if it's not greater than 0, we'll say left of, and then invalid credit amount, and we will I want to say show the amount, but that's not text, so it's actually t.pack of show of the amount, which I'll probably move to helper at some point soon. Okay, so now make credit something I can export. And then I guess make debit with the other one. Okay, so make debit, again, same signature. I could look at writing something reusable for this, but to be honest, I'm not sure it's worth it because they're so short. So if the amount is less than 0, it makes sense. Otherwise, it's an invalid debit amount, that thing. Okay, and this is broken because given some collection of ledger entries, it folds over those ledger entries. Starting with 0, summing them up, and taking ledger entry amount, which is now just amount. So it was ledger entry amount before, again because of persistent in that case. That's kind of horrible. Can you say? I was just thinking we could map and get the amounts out and then call sum on it, which would be, I think that's more readable. So we want to call sum on map of amount on x's. We don't need x's then, right? Sum of map amount. Sum of f map amount, because it's generic traversable, not necessarily list. Okay, so we get the amount out, then we sum it. It's a nicer definition of sum. Okay, and then in main, restart the LSP, see if it works this time. Yay! Okay, so I can import this again. I'm not using them, so we have a time and an account. And what's our ledger going to be? You can see write a helper for this. So I could say something like let ledger equal dummy ledger. I get to define this. But it knows nothing about it, so that's not very helpful. Dummy ledger is going to be a list of ledger entries. So grab that. But it also needs the time and the account ID. I can put them into here. I'm just going to grab these, they don't need to be in main. Okay, so we get the time and some random account ID, and then I can say within a list. Oh, sorry, this should be IO. Means that this is no longer let, it's going to be that. And then it's going to be pure of that. There we go. But we should maybe create some ledger entries. So it's going to be credit 100T 1 ID. We can import this. How do I want that to function? Nope, that. Okay, what was the type of account ID? Jump into here. Account ID I said was, I didn't, I dropped it out. Right. Okay, that makes life easier. So we don't need the UID anymore. We don't need a toll anywhere, I don't think. And what's gone wrong now? With either. Okay. Yeah, good point. So a credit is either that or an error. So I can say could say IO of either text or that. And then we'll import text into here. And then we can say later into one is make credit. So I'm hoping that if this is a left, that was wrong, it would return an error here. Oh, hang on. Okay, that's not running under IO. No, so no problem. So I'm just going to say write LE1 is that. So we get a runtime error if it's not successful. And write LE2 is make debit. So at minus 10 and T. And then we say LE1 and LE2. And I'll drop that either out and that out and just force them to be successful. Or have a runtime error. And then import this. Go to text. Can I disable that one? Yep. Okay. Normally I want that warning, but just to get this running, I don't. Let's see if this is now working. So I'll run. Okay, cool. That makes some sense. I can make these safer. Do I want to make these safer? I do want to make these safer. This is not an int64, right? Money. I want to say a credit is a credit where the amount is an int64. Deriving new type show equal and yeah, that was useful before, I think. And then new type debit. It's going to be really good. What I was thinking is that if I define these types and then use them in the ledger, so credit would just take not any old number, but it would specifically take a credit. And then this would be the credit, and then we could call credit.amount and not do the check here, but I would still have to do the check here. So we'd have to say credits over here. I'm not sure it's in there for now. Look at it somewhere. Deal with the idea that you might not have a valid amount when you're creating the credit. So something somewhere has to just check the error. This might be okay. Right, so given this, let's do the postgresql-simple thing. Where now what I want to do is, I guess, a few things. So I want to spin up the database. I want to connect to the database. I want to pass in the database connectivity in the environment and get it out and use it. either today or next week, I'll want to use a pool of connections rather than a single connection, because that's what I would want to do in a proper application. I want to create some config to do to encapsulate loading config in places. And I want to deal with migrations, I think. Oh, and I guess think about how I pass the connection around. So either in some kind of reader or maybe start looking at effectful. Probably won't get that far today though. So first things first, I want postgresql-simple, which is 064. What was I looking at? 064, yep. So in the library, no. In main, probably in both. Because I think main is going to be responsible for creating the connections, but then the library is going to be responsible for using that connection. postgresql-simple, and I hope I remembered it correctly as 064. Find out in a second. It doesn't look right. Did I misremember it? 064, what was its problem then? Okay. This is 07, which supports the same version of base, hopefully. Let's find out. That looks a lot happier. Yep. I wonder how many CPUs this uses by default. Like, will it use all the cores or just one of them? Who knows? Okay. Let's restart the LSP. Okay, that looks good enough, I think. Okay, back to the cabal file. I want to create a new module called config. I'm going to use that to load environment, the connection string, and then I'm going to want one called db, which is going to give me back. It's going to take the config and connect to the database, I think. Start with those two. So source config, maybe. No. Oh, it's not going to give me a prompt for module. Okay. I have to type module myself. Config. I'll export something, but I don't know what yet. Where? Some stuff. I'll have something called load config. And I'll have a config type as well. So load config is going to be IO config, and load config is undefined, and the config type is going to be data config. For now, I don't know if that's legit, but currently an empty record. Don't know if that's a thing. Oh, the other thing I needed was db, so db.hs, and then in here I'm going to say, oh, give me the prompt. Cool. Module db. Better. So where's the error? Not really. Oh, it is here. Okay. restart LSP. Okay, I think I have no errors left, which is nice. So db, no, not db, config. In config, I want something like db URL, db URL, db connection string. Don't know what I'd call it, which is a type text. I can say why not a new type? I have my reasons. Deriving show equal, why not? Okay, so load config, I want to get that environment. I don't know how to do that. I've done this before, it's something like os.getenv. Google, maybe getenv, yeah, comes from system.environment. And these are all strings. Is there a text equivalent? There's a byte string. It's a bit better. I'll get the string and I'll turn it into text straight away, I think. The byte string will be slightly better, but not radically different. So we can say, does this return a maybe, or does it return an empty string? It fails with an error. That's really not what I wanted. Lookup env, that's better. Returns it or nothing. Maybe I want POSIX. Because then I get my byte string. But yeah, that's probably what I actually think. So give it a byte string and it gives me back maybe a byte string. And this was getenv. So I can say db connection string is getenv, and what we should call it db connection string. Don't like the word string in there. There we go, fixed. Just 1 second. So I was going to sneeze, but no, I'm not. Okay. Did sneeze, right. I can say getenv db connection. I'll prefix this with pame or pamey. So that'll be maybe. So this should also be IO of either a config error or a config. So data config error is going to be missing thing, missing env, missing envar, and then the name of it. For now, I'll derive show EQ. Okay, so we get that, and guess this is the only thing we have. So for now, I could just say case db connection of nothing is left of missing mvar payme db connection and right. Oh, it's pure of left. I can just float the pure out to here. Right, and then some value is going to be right of config and it was db connection. Okay, oops. Some more stuff. So get env. I want to do the POSIX one. System.env.byte, system POSIX env byte string, and it comes from Unix. Okay. Is that safe? No, let's go back to where we were. Let's do lookup env, system.environment. Lookup env, and this is going to be that. Nothing and right. That doesn't make any sense. Be that. Okay, I want to end up with the name db connection here. So I'm going to say m db connection there, and here, and then here I'm going to call it db connection. The whole reason for this is I'm thinking at this point I can just use named field puns, but that's not the error. The error is that I need to pack it. Which means I probably can't be this fancy. That's going to be equals. So t.pack, I want data.text. Can I do that? I don't think I can, no. Okay. So now I should have a config that contains the connection URL, connection string. And in main, I can say something like config is load config. I can import that, and I can say case config of, and then if this is left some kind of error, then we can just say now error, and if it's right, what we do is right. I need to get it somewhere. Let's just start nesting these things. So in do, I can say to.bootstrolling, and then t.pack show of config. So what's going on here? Okay, pack comes from there, and then text.io as TIO, and then we got shadowing here, So error of show of error, and then this config matches this config. So can you say econfig? I've not seen that before. I've seen people using M for maybe. You just put an M at the beginning and it's like the maybe version of it. But I haven't seen this. Maybe it's like, I don't know. Let's leave it like that for now. Essentially what I'm expecting to see is an error here. And there's not a lot I can do if the config doesn't load. So what I could do, instead of doing this stuff, is just a runtime error anyway. So I could say write config is that. And if this is a left, then we'll exit because this won't match, we get runtime error. Otherwise, we should print it out. Fish. I'll run. So I should get an error. Yeah, it's not the best error. That much failure in do. Yeah, maybe we can make that better. Okay, so now I can say config equals. Oh no, not quite that. I made stores in a variable, so we'll say config result. I think calling it econfig was confusing. And here I can say now config equals case. Oh, there's a helper for this. I can just say from left. Is that right? Is that right? From right, it would be anyway. From right. B, other B, B. Okay, cool. So I can say from right. I give it default value, but default value is actually going to sneakily be an error. But at least in this error, I can explain a bit more. Error loading config. Doesn't tell you what the error is, so no, I'm just going to write it out. All this to get a better error message. But I guess this is what programming's like, right? It's not fancy stuff. It's just I want to print out a useful message at this point. Here's a lot of code to handle one weird case. So case config result of, okay, so now we can say, oh, it needs to be let. That's what's complaining. Okay, if this is left of some error, then I want to still throw the error, but I want to format it better, so I can say error loading config, and then show the error. There we go. I was getting errors. I didn't really know why, but it's because I hadn't indented it enough. You need to indent it beyond this let to continue in the next line. Okay, right. Config is config. Bit of shadowing there. We'll just return the value. I might call it C. It's more config, isn't it? Okay, so now we should get a better error. Pame, error loading config, missing envar, pame db connection. Okay, so same thing again, but I can say name DB connection. Give an empty string for now, and then compile run. Okay, that worked better. And then some URL. Okay, it's loading that correctly. Good. Okay, now we have a connection string. In theory, we can then connect to the database. So I could say connection, which might be cool in future, is it's going to be like something like connect to DB. I'll give it a config. Try that, and then connect to DB is going to come in the DB module. I might just call it connect. Use the namespace of the module to disambiguate it. So connect is going to be an IO of, now I need to find the type, it's connection. Connections. It's called connect postgresql, takes a byte string. Sorry, what does it return? It returns an IO connection. And what happens if it goes wrong? I can't see what it does when it goes wrong. I guess we'll find out. Oh, it takes config, certainly. And then goes there. Okay, so connect. Give them some config. But really in the config, all I care about is the DB connection. And that's going to be equal to, and then it was connect PostgreSQL. Oops. Connect PostgreSQL, and it was DB connection. Okay, so I can import that. I can import config, hopefully. I need to be able to pattern match from config, and then this should come from PostgreSQL. And DB connection, I have text and I want byte string. I'm wondering, do I want to use byte string in my config? Or do I want to keep text in the config and then convert it at this point? I guess the big difference though is text is UTF-8 and byte string is not. I don't really want UTF-8 characters in my DB connection. So maybe I will change this to be a byte string, which means I'm going to import byte string. So I need to go and find byte string. Nope, here, byte string. I think I'll want to use text in other places. It's a bit annoying. I'm going to end up with two of these. So now let's see how it goes. Let's import byte string. Okay, we're not going to call t.pack, but we're going to call bs.pack. And we'll import that. I don't know whether or not I want to be lazy. So what's the problem here? Pack is packing word A, it's not. Oh, that's not what I want then, is it? Is it like a from string? No. What we actually got in byte string. Introducing, maybe. Maybe not. Pack goes from word 8. I really want from a string. So can I go string to byte string? Oh, there's a byte string that, all right. So I try this again. Hack, let's see if I can import the right thing. Yes. Okay. So that gives me a byte string, and then back in the DB, that should not work. So I can call connect, and it just calls connect for now. And then back in main, need to restart the LSP for some reason. Okay, it's not connect to DB, it's going to be db.connect config. Cool. Okay, so now I've got a connection. I should be able to execute something really dumb on it. So I've got my connection. Then I can say this. But actually I might just print it out. So I can say tio dot put string with that. I'll import query. So this is of type IOR0. Okay. Other way around. That. Okay. So we get this thing, and we want to say I guess show on that. I'm only printing out for debug purposes, so I don't need to convert it into text. Okay, now it doesn't know what's going on. So show this thing is going to be of type something. I can't remember what the type of this is. It is What's the type? Cancel from row, but what's the type of query? Just goes IO of R, so for all R from row R, there's no constraint about being able to show that, and no indication what the R is. Okay. So let's say only I is not. We can pull in that constructor. And we still have the ambiguous thing, so we haven't told what it is yet, but then we can say put strlen I. It doesn't care. Okay. I thought I would need to clarify what this I is, but apparently not. So if I run, it should still fail because I'm not running a database. Okay, so this is the error it's giving me. Missing equal after sum. Okay, getting slightly closer. So I somewhere here, yes, copy and pasteable, Docker compose. Is that right? I think so. It doesn't look complete to me. I thought Docker compose needed more stuff at the beginning, like a version. 2 years ago, I don't know. Let's find out. Okay, so in the root directory, I'll say compose.yaml, drop that in. Looked all right. So it's going to go to Postgres. These variables are not set. But let's just see if it starts with empty user and password. No, let's say it's in .env. So the user is going to be pame, password will be pame, and the database will be the same thing. Okay, and then if I say Docker compose, oh, kind of should have -d, but anyway. I can create a new window. Compile run. Ah, yes. That thing. Okay, so now we can say host equals localhost and all this good stuff. Host equals whatever. I think it defaults to localhost, but it's DB name, user, and password that I want. What was it? Sorry, DB name. And that was pame. It's all very secure. I kind of feel like this should all come from the environment. And maybe if these things are already set in the .env file and being used by Docker, they could also be used by the application. And you can construct that string. Yeah, that feels a bit better. So how do I use .env in? I don't know how to use a .env file in a shell. Like there's a thing that does it, but I can't remember what it is. It's probably called .env. Is it just a thing? There are many things called .env. Load env files in development. .env is a library that does it. App search .env. There are many .env. I just want an easy one to use. But many people have done it. No. Let me just go back to this approach and then I'll have a look in a week and see if I can work out the name of the thing that just loads up now cd into this directory. DB name is equal to pame. Is it space separated? It looks like space separated is. Okay. User is equal to pame and password. Password or password? Password. Pame. Okay, cool, I guess. Is it host name or host? Host. What's equal to localhost? Getting better. So I think it did work, but I'm not showing it properly. So what types are incompatible? This is back in main. If I say I is an int, no. I've told it I is a string. I see what happened there. Print. Right, now it doesn't know what I is again. That makes sense. Okay, if I tell it I is an int, there we go. It says 4. Okay, so I have kind of some way of getting the config, kind of some way of getting the database. I can run a query, and then kind of out of time. So next week, I'll get the M stuff working. I will make sure that whatever environment variables I'm using to configure Postgres are also the ones that config is using. And I'll build that connection string properly. And then probably in the DB module, I'll build that connection string properly. Or there's the variables that I've loaded in config. And then I'll store a ledger entry in the database, I guess. Oh, migrations. I'll do some migrations and then store it. I think. Yes. I'm going to think about this as well. I'm not super chuffed with this, I guess. But maybe it's okay. Maybe just in the main, maybe just throwing an error is okay. I'll have a think. I just don't want lots of these kind of do something and then effectively early return. Let's see, I'll think about that. But I'll at least continue with connecting to the database and storing a bit of data, and then look at how I pass the connection around and connection pooling. But yeah, stuff for next week. Thanks for watching along, and hopefully see you next time for some more quasi-realistic Haskell fun. I'll see you then. Bye.